Imagine waking up one morning to the unthinkable. Russia launches a full-scale attack against NATO. 30 nations, bound by the most powerful military alliance in history, are suddenly thrust into direct war with Moscow. Within hours, Europe is on fire, missiles light up the skies, and the world is staring down the barrel of World War III. The question is, would NATO survive the opening month or collapse under the sheer weight of Russia's assault? In today's video, we'll dive deep into this nightmare scenario. We'll explore how Russia might launch such an attack, how NATO would respond, and what the first month of this global conflict might actually look like. Stay with me until the end, because the outcome may not be what you expect. If Russia ever dared to strike NATO, it would not begin with tanks rolling across borders. It would start with shock and awe. Moscow would unleash cyberattacks on NATO command centers, paralyzing communications. Power grids in Europe would flicker and fail. Banks, airports, and even hospitals would grind to a halt, leaving millions in chaos before a single bullet was fired. Then comes the real firepower, long-range missiles targeting NATO air bases in Poland, Germany, and the Baltics. Fighter jets are destroyed on the ground, radar systems blinded, and command structures decapitated. The Russian military doctrine is clear: cripple NATO's ability to respond in the first 72 hours. But Russia would not stop there. Kaliningrad, its heavily militarized enclave between Poland and Lithuania, becomes the epicenter of chaos. From here, Russia launches missile strikes across the Baltic Sea, while its Baltic fleet threatens NATO's northern supply lines. NATO was built for exactly this moment. Within hours, Article 5 is invoked. An attack on one is an attack on all. American, British, French, and German forces scramble to reinforce the Eastern Front. U.S., F-35 stealth fighters and B-2 bombers roar into European skies, striking Russian missile sites and supply hubs. At sea, NATO carriers dominate. The U.S. Navy and Britain's Royal Navy blockade the Baltic and Black Seas, aiming to cut off Russia's access to trade and reinforcements. But every NATO move comes with a cost. Russia has nearly 6,000 nuclear warheads, and every strike risks pushing Moscow closer to the brink of using them. The fiercest clashes erupt in Eastern Europe. Russian tanks surge toward the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Outnumbered NATO troops hold the line, but only barely. Cities like Riga and Vilnius become battlegrounds, their skies filled with drones, artillery shells, and cruise missiles. Meanwhile, in Poland, NATO forces dig in, transforming highways and cities into fortresses. Thousands of American soldiers land in Warsaw, preparing for the fight of their lives. In the Black Sea, Turkish forces clash with Russia's navy, while Ukraine seizes the chaos to intensify its counteroffensive against Moscow. The world watches in horror as tens of thousands of casualties mount within just the first week. Refugees flood Europe, economies crumble, and global stock markets collapse. But behind every battle looms the nuclear threat. Russia's doctrine allows for the use of tactical nuclear weapons if it feels cornered. Could Moscow fire a warning shot, a low-yield nuke against a military base, to terrify NATO into retreat? If so, NATO would face its most terrifying choice: respond with its own nuclear arsenal, or hold back to prevent Armageddon. The US, France, and Britain all have second strike capabilities, meaning even if Russia launched first, NATO could still obliterate Moscow in retaliation. This balance of terror is the thin thread preventing total annihilation. So, would NATO survive the opening month? The answer is yes, but at an unimaginable cost. NATO's combined economic and military power dwarfs Russia's. With 3.5 million active and reserve troops, advanced fighter jets, and the world's most powerful navy, the alliance would not collapse in a month. However, survival does not mean victory. Cities across Europe would be in ruins, millions displaced, and the global economy shattered. Russia may succeed in capturing parts of the Baltics or eastern Poland, but holding them would be impossible under NATO's relentless counterattack. By the end of the first month, the war would likely reach a dangerous stalemate. Neither side willing to surrender, neither side able to win decisively, pushing the world closer to nuclear war with every passing day. So, what if Russia attacked NATO? The first month would be chaos, cyber warfare, missile strikes, massive battles, and perhaps the closest humanity has ever come to extinction. NATO would survive, but the price would be unlike anything the modern world has ever endured. And that leads to the haunting truth. In such a war, there are no winners, only survivors.